Hello, everybody. Welcome to the SoxProspects.com podcast. We are the web's #1 source for information on the Boston Red Sox farm system from top to bottom, from Fort Myers to Pawtucket, and all stops in between. Thank you for the listen. My name is Chris Hatfield. I am the executive editor of SoxProspects.com, and I am joined, as always, by our potentially silent treatment protesting director of scouting, Ian Kundle. Ian, are you there? No, he's still protesting. We got in an argument before I hit record. But at any rate, we want to thank you for joining us. As always, we want to give a shout out to our $5 level Patreon supporters. That's Sox Signatures, Lendell Martin, Kirby Miller, Gerardo Ian Tosca, Kyle Costigan, Tyler Woodrow, Jeff Trainer, David Nardone, Tim Harding, Ernest Shermer, Bill Stanton, Deb Kendall, Evan Kirkwood, Chris Fox, James O'Hara, Nathan Kenyon, and Andrew Wallen. Thank you to them and all of our contributors on patreon.com/SoxProspects. Easy for me to say. You can go on there, pledge a certain amount per episode of the podcast. We really appreciate all of the support, everybody. Also, we are coming down the stretch on the Sox Prospects donation drive. We are very close to our goal for this year to bring our finances back up, basically to being a balanced budget to maintain the level of coverage that you have come to love and expect out of us. If you can contribute, please head to SoxProspects.com/donate. We really appreciate anything you can give. If it's just a little bit, great. If it's a lot, even better. But we rely on our support from our listeners and our readers, and if you can chip in, we would really appreciate that. Finally, make sure you send your emails to podcast@SoxProspects.com. We want to talk about, or at least I do, Ian might be silent about it, but we want to talk about what you want to hear about, so make sure you send your emails in. We've got a few today, so we'll be hitting those at the end of the podcast. And Ian, really hope that you're willing to get back into chatting, because we've got a lot to talk about, brother. We've got another trade that happened since our last episode at the trade deadline, with the Red Sox trading for Ian Kinsler to be the starting second baseman for less than a week before going on the DL with a hamstring injury. And one of the busiest promotion seasons I can remember in recent history, honestly. We've got, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, like 9 or so ranked prospects getting promoted over the past week. So we've got a lot to talk about there. And we've got some more theoretical discussion to have, which is the basis of Ian's silent treatment, regarding our new rankings in August. And Ian and I wanted to, or at least I wanted to discuss with Ian kind of a debate that had come up as a way to kind of, usher in the August 1st rankings, which you can check out on the website. That, of course, is SoxProspects.com. But anyways, yeah, that's kind of the roadmap. That's what we're looking at today, in addition to your questions. But Ian, buddy, hey, you want to maybe chat about some Red Sox minor league stuff?
No, yeah, I'm here. I was also muted. I just didn't feel like unmuting.
Sure. Fair enough. Well, all right. Joking aside, I guess let's take it from the top, because the trade seems to have kind of loosened things up. We had mentioned, I think even on the most recent episode of the podcast, that we thought there would be promotions immediately following the trade deadline, and we nailed a few of them. You even nailed a really random one this week, saying that when Kinsler went on the DL, look out, the Red Sox might call up Tony Renda. And sure enough, that's exactly what they did. So good on you for that one. But yeah, it's kind of interesting to me that, the Red Sox made this trade for Ian Kinsler on, they made the trade on the 30th, the day before the trade deadline, sending out AAA relief pitchers, Ty Buttrey and Williams Jerez, who were ranked 19th and 26th, I think, in the system at the time. Yep, 19th and 26th in the system at the time of the deal. And that really just kind of almost created a domino effect with all of these promotions that happened. But let's start with the trade, Ian. Buttrey and Jerez are two guys that you had recently written up.
Yeah, that was lucky.
Yeah,
in the same piece.
That was a good look. And not only that, you wrote them up with Travis Lakins, who was promoted to Pawtucket the next day as one of the two guys to fill the vacated roster spots.
Yeah.
So that was a good look.
That was a good game.
Yeah.
I think it was one game. Yeah, they all pitched in the same game.
So,
no, Lakins wasn't that game. Lakins was a different game, but the two
yeah, I guess
guys,
he wasn't, given that he was on a different team.
Yeah, but the two AAA guys, that was almost Australian. AAA guys pitched in the same game.
Righto. But yeah, it's I don't understand how you could dislike this trade.
Yeah, I mean, first off, they acquired a guy named Ian, so obviously I'm very pro that. Great first name, he's a consummate professional.
See, here's the thing: people think you're kidding, but like
No, why
even
would
in
I be
fantasy
kidding?
baseball, at one point you had 3 different guys named Ian in your 20 per player minor leagues before I
Yeah,
traded
why would I
one
be
of those.
kidding? That's like a great first name. It's a unique first name, and I'm very pro people with that first name being successful. Is that wrong?
I give
Exactly.
you the silent treatment. But yeah, I mean, it's what they look. Pedroia's not coming back.
Yeah, in all seriousness, Pedroia, he got moved to the 60-day DL today.
Yeah, but he'd already been on the DL for like 57 days.
Oh, okay. I didn't
So
realize that.
it was a technicality.
But yeah, I mean, it's pretty clear Pedroia is not coming back. And with that in mind, given how bad Eduardo Nunez has been, and with the other infield issues they've have, Holt's not been good since the first month. But they've also Devers is on the DL. Pedroia is obviously on the DL. And Bogarts has not played weirdly in a few days. He's like
he got hit on the hand.
Which we know what happened last year when he had a hand injury.
Right.
So I'm all for resting him given where they are. But they just needed infield depth, and Ian Kinsler, he's a good player. He's old, but he can still play. And we saw in that, couple games he played, he's a good defender. He can hit a little bit still. Mm-hmm. And I think it just deepens their lineup. Come October, would you rather have Ian Kinsler hitting 6th or 7th or Brock Holt?
Yeah, and I think the fact of the matter is that Holt gets exposed when he plays a lot, and
yep.
I probably would have lost money betting whether or not Eduardo Nunez would still be on the team at this point.
Yeah, because he has legitimately been terrible. His quote was great, though. I love the self-awareness. Did you see his quote?
No.
He was cheering when they got. It's like, oh, thankfully we have someone who can actually play second base now, or something along those lines.
Really?
Yeah, he said that, which I was just like, I respect the self-awareness.
Wow, that's kind of surprising.
Let me find the exact quote. What was it? Because it's kind of, I guess it's kind of your reading type.
Yeah, but the thing is with Buttrey, there were it stunned me that there were people who were upset that they traded Buttrey and Jerez because I don't think many people. I think people were sleeping on Williams Jerez because people were way more upset about Buttrey than Jerez.
I would not have been surprised if Jerez had a better career than Buttrey.
Lefty.
Yeah, lefty. The stuff is pretty similar. They both throw in the high 90s. Like I've seen both of them up to 99 this year. And they both sat, 96, 98 when I saw them. So they both have really good arms. Obviously Buttrey, I think the thing is Buttrey's numbers are insane in AAA.
Yeah. He's had good numbers since last year when he moved into the bullpen.
His strikeout rate's like 35% or something.
At Pawtucket this year, his strikeout rate was 34.6%. Yeah.
35%. So the Buttrey's numbers really jump off the page, but I think it was telling that they called up Ryan Brazier ahead of him, when they needed a righty reliever a couple weeks ago. And once that happened, it kind of was a red flag to me. And given he's taking up a 40-man spot, and it seems for whatever reason they didn't even give him a shot in that spot. They went to a 31-year-old minor leaguer who wasn't on the 40-man roster.
Who you have very strong thoughts about.
Who shouldn't be a prospect.
We'll get there.
They went to him over Buttrey is kind of opened my eyes a little bit. And after that, I wondered if it was someone that they would potentially be looking to move. And they did. That's exactly what happened. And I can see why the Angels were targeting those guys. The stuff is really good. They grade out well in terms of spin rates and stuff like that.
Which the Angels, I'm comfortable saying it's out there. The Angels love their TrackMan data.
They both can miss bats. They both have, major league bullpen profiles, and it's very easy to see those guys pitching, in the 6th, 7th, maybe even 8th innings if everything works out right at some point. But they also have red flags. Buttrey,
I'll say it. Right? It's a mentality thing.
There are some questions there.
I don't know that Ty Buttrey has the mentality to pitch, crucial innings in the major leagues. When I've seen him pitch in the minors at multiple levels, and you've seen kind of the same thing. He broke his hand because he punched a sprinkler on the ground during a game.
Yeah, that seems kind of unlucky.
Yeah, that's very unlucky. And frankly, I've done kind of the same thing. So I guess
I've punched walls in basketball before.
Yeah, I've broken my hand punching a wall. So
yeah, so you're not one to judge. I've never broken a hand. I always make sure there's padding there, and it's more an open-fisted slap because I don't want to break my hand. But
I made sure there was padding. It just wasn't nearly as thick as I thought it was.
Well, that's why you go the open fist.
Right.
You just
fair palm strike. Okay.
Yeah,
I'll do a palm strike. The next, I'll say Kia next time I do it too.
200 IQ plays right there. Got to protect those hands.
Yes.
But yeah, no, Buttery. I just think there still are some question marks, and I'm still not sold on that. His not walking anyone is really weird. Because his
he
command
cut the walk
good.
rate this year in Pawtucket to 7.6%, and that's the lowest it's been since Greenville in 2015.
Yeah, like his control has definitely improved. I'm still not sold on the command, and as you said, I'm just not convinced that like he'll be able to handle like the 8th inning. And so even if he develops, because the stuff is there to be like an 8th inning guy. But I think probably he settles into like a solid 6th, 7th inning guy, which is, I mean, that's fine. You can find those guys though. We've seen like you can go out and get the Ryan Brazier, the Ryan Braziers of the world on off waivers or as minor league free agents. I mean, we saw like what's the guy's name on the National? Oh, Justin Miller, the Nationals guy. Mm-hmm. He's like a 30-year-old journeyman who came up and he struck out. Yeah, he pitched like 17 innings without giving up a hit or something insane. Right. Like you can find those guys, and the Red Sox have depth at that position coming, which someone will touch on later in Lakin. So I don't really get the Buttery thing. The Harris one, I actually kind of think a little more because they just don't have any other lefties in the system like him. Like
I guess
the only other lefty in the system who can throw over 95 is Darwinzon Hernandez.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, there you go. I mean, Darwinzon Hernandez, who's going to have to be protected from Rule 5 this offseason.
And is going to be a reliever, probably.
Yeah. But it's going to be a good one.
But that's like, if you look all the way up and down the system, there's not another lefty who touches higher than like 92.
I mean, they just don't seem to prioritize having a lefty in the bullpen.
No, which is weird.
They really don't.
Speaking of which, their entire bullpen right now is right-handed.
Right. Well, because they've got Johnson in the rotation.
Yeah,
because they've got four lefties in the rotation or whatever it is.
Yeah, it seems like though that in terms of lefty relievers, what they look for more is like funk. They're not looking for like a velocity guy. They're looking for someone who can just get lefties out. Mm-hmm. They don't really care about having like a 1 inning lefty reliever.
Like, I mean, I think Bobby Pointer is going to be on the postseason roster.
Yeah, exactly. Or like Robbie Scott, who I saw last night. Like that's the kind of lefties they look for. And so in that sense, Harris was kind of like an oddball in the system because he throws 99 and has that.
I don't know if it's necessarily something they look for as opposed to what they have, right?
Yeah, it is just like
and Harris gets you more than Bobby Pointer's deceptive fastball.
Oh, absolutely. In trades, it's not even close. That's why teams want Harris because teams value velocity.
And I think that's a thing where, a lot of times when the Red Sox trade a guy, when the Red Sox trade Jalen Beeks but keep other players in the system, it's not because they say, and I think this relates to a question we got, like Denny Reyes more than Jalen Beeks. It's that Jalen Beeks got them Nathan Eovaldi, and Denny Reyes was not going to get them Nathan Eovaldi, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
So when you trade a guy, it doesn't mean you don't like him. It means that you like what you are getting for him more.
You have to give something to get something.
Right.
Like they wanted Ian Kinsler. I mean, we saw, the second base market it was basically him and Dozier was left of the rentals, and Dozier went for a decent price to the Dodgers.
Yes.
Yeah. So, Dozier went to the Dodgers for a decent price, and then they got Kinsler, and they paid a price. They paid potentially 2, middle relief types. But if the upgrade at second base, when you're a team like they are with the best record in baseball by something like, 5 games or 4 games, mm-hmm. and you have eyes set on winning the World Series, that's the price you're going to have to pay to upgrade from like a full type for the post. And I'll do that any day of the week when I'm competing, especially with what Evan Drellick revealed that they're already over the luxury tax, whatever, 237 million number. So it didn't matter that they acquired him money wise. So, go for it. Like This is the guy. He's a guy who helps you now, obviously not now because he's on the disabled list, but he can help you. And the price it's not like they didn't give up the 2 things I do like about the return is it was 2 guys. So there was no third throw in low A or, DSL guy. And it was 2 AAA guys who we know what they are. They didn't go down, and it wasn't like they gave up a package of something like Alex Scherf and Danny Diaz or, 2 lower level guys who we don't know what they are, but they have upside.
Right.
This was 2 proven commodities. We know what they are. And it was unclear if they had much of a long-term future with the Red Sox or if they did that's the type of player that's easier to replace than giving up someone who might not be close to what they could be in the future, but could develop into a better player.
And, trading Ty Buttrey and Williams Harris should not be what keeps you from adding a piece that helps you win that could potentially help you win a championship this year when you've got a 2 or 3 year window. And
exactly.
The other thing is they're dealing from, they have a glut of relief pitchers on the 40-man roster. So again, it's Dave Dombrowski dealing from depth.
Well, and it's also not just on the 40-man roster. They have relief help coming. Like they have 2 guys who I think are better than both those guys who aren't on the 40-man roster, who one of them is 100% going to be up, and I would not be surprised at all if he makes the postseason roster, in Travis Lakins. And the other one is Durbin Feltman, who we'll probably touch on a little bit in the promotions.
Right, exactly. And I guess that's probably, as we call it in the business, Ian, a good transition. Because you mentioned 2 guys who were promoted this week. I'm not going to bother breaking it down by date, but just to give the list of promotions and where they're ranked in the current Sox prospects rankings. Moving up to Pawtucket are, on our rankings, the number 7, 10, 17, and where do we have Gorst? 47 ranked prospects in the system in right-handed pitcher Mike Schwarin, first baseman Josh Ockamy, and then right-handed relievers Travis Lakins and Matthew Gorst. Moving up to Portland is the system's new number 6 prospect on our rankings, and third baseman Bobby Dahlbeck. Moving up to Salem is the system's new number 11 ranked player and right-handed reliever Durbin Feltman. Moving up to Greenville from Lowell were a couple of 2018 draftees he's number 20 now, isn't he? The system's number 20 prospect, Jaron Duran, a second baseman / outfielder who it looks like he's in the outfield for good now, by the way. But outfielder Jaron Duran and catcher Cole Cottom. And, another 2018 draftee and catcher, or I guess utility player Lane Milligan to Lowell. And I guess they actually just promoted a couple more draftees to Lowell. Nothing too big. But the other really big promotion, which is really more of activating a guy and officially promoting him, was shortstop Anthony Flores, who basically the last game he played in the Dominican Summer League was back in June, and he hadn't played since then, but had been in Fort Myers because of what was reported as general soreness, which I'm extremely skeptical about. But at any rate, he was officially promoted to the Gulf Coast League on the 31st. So lots of movement, Ian. Let's start with Pawtucket because you saw a few of the guys who got promoted in Schwarin and Ockamy.
Yeah, I was there for their AAA debut last night. And they looked a lot like what I've seen in the past and kind of reinforced my views of them. I guess starting with Schwarin, he was very good for 3 innings. The first, which coincidentally or not coincidentally, was the first time through the order. And then the second time through the order, he ran into a lot of trouble. And third time through, and he got it out 6 1/3 innings. I'm trying to bring up his final line here. 1 second.
Okay, well, let me interject while you do that. Breaking news, Cutter Crawford and Denny Reyes to Salem.
Oh, we literally were talking about
which we were talking about earlier. Yeah. That
so I guess we'll get to
20 minutes
ago.
In
a few minutes. But Schwarin. So he went 6 1/3 innings, gave up 7 hits, 4 runs, 1 walk, 6 strikeouts. And so the line isn't great, but if you look at it, break it down for 3 innings, in his first 3 innings, he had 3 innings, 0 hits, 0 walks, 0 runs, 4 strikeouts. And then over his last, it was 3 1/3 innings, 7 hits, 4 runs, 2 strikeouts, 1 walk.
So we've heard a lot that Schwarin's a reliever, and it seems like that's what you saw.
Yeah, I think he could be like a situational, long relief type, like someone you can bring in for 3 innings. But it's just the second time through the order, the stuff really decreased. He came out 91, 93. And then by the second, third time through, he was down to 89, 91. So the velo ticked down. And his best pitch is a slider. Slider was plus. And even when he was struggling, he basically just for the second and third time through just started throwing his slider like a fastball. He would open at bats with it. He was throwing a ton of them. Mm-hmm. And the changeup, he only threw probably 5 to 10 for the entire outing. He rarely used it. And he threw 1 average one, and then the rest were 30s. So the changeup is still an inconsistent work in progress. Sliders plus, fastball in and came out, it was 55 pitch, maybe plus if you want to be generous. When he's commanding it, it might play up a little bit because it's got some sink down in the zone, and if he's keeping it down, it is tough to square up. But
and he's still got that low 3/4 arm slot, right? So
yeah, he's got this little like rock back before he comes forward, and some funky mechanics. And but then it was, the second and third times, the hitters just stopped swinging at a slider. And the result was they just waited for fastballs, and he gave up 6 of the 7 hits he allowed were off fastballs. All the runs came off hits that had to do with the fastball. The home run, it was a 3-run home run to the weirdest prospect I've seen in a while. Astudillo was just a 90-mile-per-hour fastball right down the middle. Like, you can't do that in the AAA level, let alone the big league level. And so, I like Schwerin. I think he could be a very valuable major league contributor. And I wonder if his stuff would take up if he was in the bullpen full time. If he was throwing 1 or 2 innings, I wonder if he'd be like 93, 94 rather than, 90 to 92 or topping out at 93. But I just don't, I'm not sure it works as a starter. And granted, this is one look. I want to see him again, and maybe he just didn't have feel for his changeup in this outing. And if he shows me a changeup, maybe I'll give him a better chance. But based on what I saw in this outing, I'm pretty confident in saying he's a reliever long term. And but I think he could be a pretty decent one there.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's kind of the comparison to me almost is a little bit like a poor man's Masterson or something, just with the arm slot, and it's not, fastball slider, righty. I don't know.
It's just tough to get by at the big league level when you're right-handed with a low 3/4 arm slot with only 2 pitches, and neither of them is a changeup to get lefties out.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, I'm literally checking his left-right splits right now. Okay, left-handers are hitting 229, 304, 318 off of him, so I guess that's not bad.
No, his splits aren't.
His splits
great.
Aren't bad. No, his splits are fine.
But it's just the stuff is the slider's good. I mean, the slider's a legit pitch. That's a pitch that can get major league hitters out. And you got 14 swinging strikes off a slider yesterday. That's a ton.
Wow, that is a lot.
He only got 4 off his fastball, and so it's the slider is his go-to pitch.
Right. And
given how much he threw it, that's not surprising. But he's going to have to work on it's the fastball and the changeup are the 2 things. And that's going to determine long term. And if the changeup comes around, maybe it could be like a number 4, number 5 starter. But I would say the greater chance is that he's a reliever long term.
Moving from Mike Schwerin to a teammate of his who also does actually have issues with splits is Josh Ockamy, who went deep for you in his debut.
Yeah, he did a very Josh Ockamy game. He struck out, he walked, and he hit a home run.
There you
go. But it's kind of more the same with him. He murders righties. I don't know if you have his.
I do. In Portland this year, he hit 283, 417, 551 against righties, but against left-handers, he hit 198, 265, 321. Average on balls in play was 297, so it's not a in play luck thing. Pop is there when he does make contact, but 40 strikeouts and 117 plate appearances, so that's a 34% K rate against lefties versus a 27.8% K rate against righties. Let's call it 28.
Yeah, and I don't think he sees the ball very well from lefties for whatever reason, because against righties, he faced his strikeout actually ironically was against a righty, but it was against a guy throwing 97 who was a reliever. The Twins did the weird opener thing.
Wait, in AAA they did that?
Yeah.
Was it just a rehabbing guy?
Nope. It was a AAA reliever.
Really?
They had Nick Anderson, who he threw hard. He was 96, 97 through the first inning and 2/3. And then they brought in Steven Gonzalez, who's actually a prospect.
That's you would think they would want Gonzalez to get the work against the top of the order. That's weird.
It was very strange. And Gonzalez then pitched 6 innings.
5 1/3, yeah. So Nick Anderson threw 1 2/3, and then Gonzalez threw 5 1/3.
Yeah.
That's strange as hell.
Wasn't it? It was really, I was very perplexed by it.
Nick Anderson, he's basically a reliever who started 2 of his last 3, but I mean, his innings pitched are all 1 and 2 innings.
Yeah, he threw, I think 30, I'm guessing 30 pitches was his max because they took him out at 29 or something.
32.
Or 32, yeah. But anyway, but he was 96, 97, so that's big time velo. And his delivery was weird, so that was, they had a lot of trouble with him when he came out. But then he faced his home run also came off a righty though, and it was an 0-2 pitch, but it was just a hanging changeup
off of Tyler Duffy, who's a major league
reliever for the Twins in the past. But he fell behind, but 0-2. His approach, like he knows what he's doing at the plate, and that's the thing that stands out with Alchemy is like he can pick up spin, he strikes out a lot. But it's not because he just doesn't recognize breaking balls or anything, or it's more just he has swing and miss in his like that's just how his swing works. You know, it's power based uppercut swing. He's going to swing and miss a little bit. But it was an 0-2 changeup. He recognized it early, kept his weight back, and just exploded through the ball. It's 390 feet, 102 exit velocity, which it was like an 80 mile per hour pitch. So he really got around on it. And it was in a big situation. I mean, it was a 4-3 game at the time, and he's facing a major league reliever in his AAA debut. And, you know, he had a game-tying home run. So that's pretty good. I noticed, actually, defensively, I got a pretty good look at Akemi. And it's pretty fringy at first base. He showed off an average arm, and his hands are improved. But he's still a little bit on the stiff side. And he had some trouble with balls going to his right. Reaching across his body. There was one that he deflected up in the air that a play he should have made, but he deflected up in the air and it went to the second baseman. And thankfully, Brandon Phillips was just standing there, so he threw him out. And then there was another one that was a ground ball that he like booted a little bit, but he was able to make the play still. So I mean, it's kind of like he strikes me as a platoon bat, but I think he could actually be pretty good in that role just because I really think he can hit right-handed pitching.
Yeah, I mean, he clearly can.
In this day and age, you know, there is a place in the major leagues for a player who can destroy right-handed pitching and hit home runs.
I mean, that's basically That's basically Daniel Palka, I think, right, in Chicago.
Yeah, I was just looking at reading Alex Spear's write-up in Baseball America of the midseason Red Sox top 10. And his comparison was Adam Lind.
Yeah, there you go.
So that type of profile. So that isn't
the recently departed Adam Lind.
Yeah, ironically, one time with the Red Sox. So there is room for that, and I just think it's going to be interesting. AAA is going to be a good test for him. He's going to be facing better pitching, and it's just interesting that him and Sam Travis are now at the same level. Which I don't know. I just thought it was kind of quirky, but anyway,
well, it's weird because they've got the two of them at the same level. And I mean, you see the way that probably plays out. I mean, Travis can play left field. I mean, Travis was already basically splitting time evenly between first base and left field. So really, Akemi is taking Adam Lind's at bats. But meanwhile, down in AAA now with the promotion of Bobby Dahlbeck, you've got two third basemen on the roster in Michael Chavis and Dahlbeck, who are two, even Travis's star has faded a bit, but you've got the number one prospect in the system and a guy who, if he keeps hitting like he has, hell, maybe could be pushing him for that.
I mean, he's the guy who's the most upside.
Yeah,
if he can hit
the most upside, and
player-wise.
Yeah, and if he hits in AA like he was hitting in Salem, I will give serious thought to putting at that spot this offseason in Dahlbeck. I mean, it seems like the way that works out is you get Chavis some at-bats at second base and first base, and the both of them also get some at-bats at DH. I guess today's lineup is out and Dahlbeck is DHing. Not a problem, right? I mean, it's you get them the at-bats, and in theory, I think you hope that Chavis works his way up to Pawtucket.
Exactly. Pawtucket infield definitely could use him, given half their infielders are in Boston at this point.
Right.
And I mean, Chavis, it's been a slow comeback since his injury, but he's starting to come around a little bit. I think he's had a decent couple of games, and there's enough playing time to go. Like, they can both play 5 or 6 days a week at various positions. And also with Dahlbeck, I'm not as concerned about his defense. So if he has to DH like 3 days a week, that's not the end of the world. No. Whereas I'd rather Chavis get the majority of the reps at third base. Whereas give Dahlbeck a chance to get adjusted and just focus on hitting AA pitching for a while. I wouldn't be surprised to see that kind of be like, Chavis plays like 4 games at third, 1 at first, 1 at second, and Dahlbeck plays 3 a week or something like that.
At third, and DH is the other ones, yeah.
Exactly. I would not be surprised to see Chavis get the majority of the reps still because he needs the defensive work, but there's plenty of playing time to go around for them. And as we kind of talked about, Dahlbeck needed the challenge. Like, he's figured out Salem to the point where he's hit like 28 home runs there. So
yeah. We talked a little bit about the Salem rotation getting some reinforcements today in Denny Reyes and Cutter Crawford. They had basically had a 4-man rotation coming in today with Brian Mata on the DL. It's apparently a back issue that's been bugging him for a little while. One thing that I think we had mentioned last episode, one guy who did not, as far as we know so far today, maybe I should check the rest of my emails, get promoted, is Tanner Houck. I'm not worried about the fact that he didn't get promoted. Are you?
No. I mean, he's pitched well for a month. Like, let him continue to get comfortable, have success, and reinforce that the mechanics he's back to are working.
Right. And frankly, he's going to start next year in Portland anyway. I cannot imagine that he would start next year in Pawtucket. If you thought he had a chance to start next year in Pawtucket, that might be a reason to rush him to Portland. But the Salem to Portland jump is the biggest jump other than the jump to the major leagues coming up the ladder. So that's one you need to be really sure about, I think. And that's also, I guess, another guy that we should mention, another guy who made the jump from Greenville to Salem is Durbin Feltman. Seemed like a lot of people, especially on our forums, Ian, were discussing the possibility of Feltman going straight to Portland. I get why he's in Salem. I think, to me, tell me if you agree, it's a similar thing where, we talked a lot about Feltman last time, so we don't really need to get too into it. But look, he's not going to pitch in the majors this year. I think that this probably ends any speculation of that. If they thought that he might make it to the majors this year, they would, in fact, have pushed him to Portland. I think that that's silly. I don't see the need. I don't think he's a guy that you're going to rely on for late inning heroics. So there's no point in bringing him up to pitch the middle innings. Next year, he's going to probably start in Portland. So let him go one level at a time, to me.
I could see him starting in Pawtucket next year, frankly.
Really?
Yeah. I think the bigger telling is just how they've used him rather than the level he's at. It's just, you're not going to call, I think I might have mentioned this on the last one, I can't remember, that you're not going to call up a guy that you can only pitch every 3 or 4 days.
You did,
and that's the way they're using him. So I don't, until there's a clear change in his usage patterns.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what level he is. Like, if he dominates Salem for 4 innings or 5 innings, I bet he goes to Portland. But that won't change what I think in terms of until I see them using him on back-to-back days or pitching, 2 out of 3 games.
Well, they did do that. I mean, so he has had at least one day off between appearances. He's had only one game off between appearances once. That was July 14th, day off, pitched again on the 16th. And I think kind of tellingly on the 16th, he gave up 2 runs, had his only walk, didn't strike anybody out. Yeah, that's actually super telling. I'm kind of glad you mentioned this. He has given up on the year in 11 innings, 6 hits. 3 of them were in this outing, as was his only walk. And it's the only outing in which he didn't strike anybody out. And he gave up 2 runs, 1 of them earned. Yeah,
so he's a guy who, like, at this point, given he pitched a long, I don't know how many innings he threw in college this year. I want to say like 40-something.
Okay, for a minute.
No, less than that, 24. He only threw 24 innings in college this year. But he's a 1-inning guy, and pitching back-to-back is something you can't just jump right into. Like, that has to develop slowly. And as you said, his numbers, the one time he pitched every other day was not good. Other than that, I don't know if you have it up, I think he's had 2 or 3 days off in between outings. He's kind of been using his back role.
Yeah, he's had at least 2 days off, like I mentioned.
And
actually in college, the 24.1. Well, that's every game. That includes. I thought that would not include like postseason and stuff, but I think it does. So that's interesting.
So it's just he's someone who I just think the usage is a better indicator than the level, because the stuff like he's probably going to go and shove in Salem. Frankly, his stuff is too good. Like, he has better stuff than any reliever I saw in the Pawtucket game yesterday. But granted, I didn't see like Travis Lakins, who actually I do want to mention a little bit of something with him after this, but. So I just think that it made sense, though, because he's not going to be challenged, and we'll see what happens. But I think next year he's going to get an invite to spring training, and we'll see what happens from there.
Yeah. Why don't you mention the point with Lakins? We're in kind of lightning round territory here.
With Lakins, I want to see how he gets used at Pawtucket. It was interesting to me yesterday that he was in the bullpen after pitching the day before, because sometimes they don't have the guys if they're not going to throw. Yeah, he was in the bullpen, and he was up at one point stretching. So I'm wondering if we're going to start seeing him get into more regulated potential, like how he could be using the major league level territory in terms of usage patterns with Pawtucket, because I genuinely think he could be up in the big leagues this year, because his stuff is in a bullpen role is legit. He's up to 98 with that cutter. That's the kind of stuff that plays in October. So I would not be surprised at all if Lakins is up at some point. And I think the indicator will be if they start using him in back-to-backs and things like that in Pawtucket.
Yeah, they haven't used him at back-to-backs yet, but he has thrown with only 1 day of rest a number of times, and it doesn't appear to have had any appreciable effect on his outcomes. So, yeah, that would be something to keep an eye out for with him. The problem, I guess, not problem, but the interesting thing with that is, until you get to Pawtucket, you have other pitchers who need work. So it's a lot harder to get guys back-to-back games because if you're doing that, then another guy is sitting for an extra game.
It's a lot more structured.
Yeah,
the pitching.
Because it kind of has to be.
Yeah.
You might have a guy who's the closer, but otherwise the rest of the guys are just rotating,
Yeah. Well, usually how the Red Sox seem to do it is they have the starter, then they have a kind of a piggyback guy who goes 2 or 3 innings. Then they'll either have the closer or and then they always have one guy available who's like if you can't finish an inning, we'll bring you in guy.
Right.
And so,
Yeah, I mean, well, especially lower in the minors, I guess, where, like Greenville until about 40 minutes ago had really 7 starters on in their pitching staff.
Well, that's the other thing that matters is the piggybacks and everything.
Right.
But anyway,
Yeah. I'm trying to think if there's anybody else we should mention. I mean, maybe briefly. We talked about Duran and caught him last week. Anything to add on the promotion, Ian? I think we kind of saw the Duran promotion coming. He is full-time in the outfield, it looks like right now. He hasn't played the infield basically since Cole Brannon got hurt, giving him full-time access to center field and Lowell. And even in Greenville, he's been playing right field in deference to Kervin Suarez in center. So,
his athleticism was wasted in the infield. It makes sense.
Yep. And I guess the only other big promotion was Anthony Flores to the GCL. Just, I guess, a brief mention of Flores. He's a guy who got $1.4 million on July 2nd of 2017. And this year in the Dominican Summer League, he only played 13 games, but really just raked for a guy playing at age 17. In 13 games, 57 plate appearances, hit 347, 439, 510. Small sample size, but that's what you want to see out of a guy. Only struck out 7 times in those 57 at-bats, and he walked 8. So that's the right direction where you want to see that. Had 1 home run. And apparently the reports are that it looks like he'll be able to stick it short. Why not get him stateside? Makes sense. Just kind of an injury deal with him. And I think the other guy who probably could have come stateside had he stayed healthy, but instead he broke his hamate bone and had to have surgery, was Danny Diaz, the third baseman who was his teammate on the DSL Red Sox 2. I think we'll see him at Instructs. I think he might even be in the States already at this point, Ian. But Diaz had 6 home runs in 26 games, which is just power you don't see at that level. So 2 guys to keep an eye on, really, from the Dominican Summer League this year.
Mm-hmm. The other one was Dan Butler got called up.
Well, Dan Butler and
Renda, but
we should mention with Renda the other reason he gets called up is I guess Zue Lin has a rib thing going on.
Correct.
Which is why he has not played since being optioned from the major league club. So that's why they wound up going with Renda. So right now, kind of your starting infield in Pawtucket at second, third, and short is Brandon Phillips at second, Ivan De Jesus at third, and probably Mike Miller at short. And that's it for infielders.
Well, they just
called up Jansen Whitty, right?
Yeah.
So Whitty can probably spot in at third if they need him to, maybe even second, but more likely you would see De Jesus move over to second, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So, a lot of promotion action.
You might have just heard me kick my desk. There's a lot going on. It was, as you said, it was one of the more noticeable or busy promotion weeks.
Busy week, yeah. Of course, here I am, my second week at my new firm, trying to keep up with this stuff, and it was tough, but I did it for you people. I did it for the rock. No, all right, did it for all you guys.
Would you like a cookie?
I love cookies. What kind?
Chocolate chip ones in the fridge.
You know what I bought this week at Costco? That's delicious. Chocolate covered mango.
I've never had chocolate covered mango.
It's.
I like mango a lot though.
It's horrible because because all I want now is that. I eat meals just to justify having more chocolate covered mango.
That's funny.
Yeah.
All right. Should we move on to the emails?
Well, let's.
Do we have rankings? Right.
We want to fight. Yeah. So, I mean, we've got our August 1st rankings. Really, Ian, no huge jumps, and you guys can all check them out at soxprospects.com. Top 5, I think we wound up keeping in the same order-ish. or I think we might have flipped Jay Groom and Tristan Casas. I think we are planning on hashing out how we want to rank the top 5 in our next update, kind of at the end of the regular season. So
we'll table that for now.
We'll table that for now. Some other smaller movement, which I think kind of lines up with everything we've talked about on this episode and in past episodes. So if you have questions about specific movement in the rankings, there's a post on our forum if you want to check that out at our forums, which are forum.soxprospects.com. If you go into the Sox Prospects discussion, there's a thread, Sox Prospects rankings discussion where Dick Duggan does a great job of kind of chronicling the rankings movement, although I think he didn't realize we did a mid-month one in July. But at any rate, if you have questions about any of the specific movements, send them in. But kind of really the biggest mover this month was Ryan Brazier, who's up to 32 after being 58 last month. A guy who's really kind of opened a lot of eyes. Who the heck is this guy, coming in this year? And really is something that there were articles written about is kind of he and Tyler Thornburg, the reason they didn't go get a reliever at the deadline. Brazier's a guy who came up through the Angels system, made his major league debut in 2013. He only got 9 innings, was okay. But after 2013, he missed 2014 and then spent 2015 in the athletic system, started 2016. I was there in 2016 as well. And last year pitched for Hiroshima in Japan before coming back stateside this year with the Red Sox. Described to me by a person within the organization as someone who they really wanted to get and the type of guy that they're not used to being able to get as far as a minor league free agent. They were very high on Brazier, who turns 31 at the end of this month, so he's 30 right now. Really has kind of opened a lot of eyes, throwing 97 Ian with regularity. It seems like Alex Cora is kind of starting to trust him with maybe the 6th and 7th inning in front of Matt Barnes before Craig Kimbrell with Joe Kelly kind of trying to refine himself. In Pawtucket, in 40 1/3 innings, Brazier saved 13 games, put up a 1.34 ERA, striking out 40 and walking 8, again in 40 1/3 innings, whip of 0.92. In 10 games with the Red Sox now, he's pitched 11 innings. He's allowed 2 runs on 6 hits and 5 walks, striking out 8. So the ERA is 1.64. The whip is a solid even 1.0. The slash line against in the majors is 162, 256, 243. So that, for those of you scoring at home, is no PS below 500. You're a bit skeptical, Ian, of him. That's fine. I get it. To me, kind of the bigger thing that I want to touch on is something that came up during our really the three of us we did not have our act together this month in doing the rankings. You don't like the fact that we ranked Ryan Brazier. Briefly, why is that? Briefly, why is that?
Because I don't think 30-year-old, minor league journeyman to this point should be discussed in the same sentence as like a 16-year-old who just signed as an international guy. Mm-hmm. Like, I think it's one thing if it's a player that has been in the system their entire time, they've had injuries or whatever along the way that has slowed down their progression. Like, that's fine. I don't have a problem ranking. I think there's some like 25, 26-year-olds, even someone like Esteban Quiroz. He's never played in, affiliated baseball before. Ryan Brazier's been around the minors for, a decade. And these kind of guys, like, they have success at AAA. Some of them do. And that doesn't necessarily mean they're any good. Or, and in Brazier's case, it seems like they might have found something. But at the same time, I don't consider that player a prospect. I know on paper they are. But in terms of what we're ranking and what we're going for, I just don't think he should be considered part of our purview.
Well, so I guess then the kind of follow-up of that is what to you is a prospect? Not in like terms of some kind of – because let's face it, there's going to be an arbitrary cutoff no matter what, right? Because we can't just use age, because if we were just using age, I mean, we would still be ranking like Mookie Betts, right? I mean, the guy is only –
Well, no.
But I'm just saying, like, we can't just use age, like full stop without anything else. Because if we were doing that, we would still be ranking Rafael Devers. We might still be ranking Mookie Betts.
They've exceeded their prospect eligibility in terms of their bats.
And that's what I was literally getting to if you would listen.
Well, I don't want to listen because this argument's dumb because I'm winning. So keep going.
No, but I'm saying so you can't just – I'm saying without anything else. You can't just use age, right?
Yes, I agree with that.
We use playing time in the majors to kind of say, okay, at this point, that is admittedly a bit arbitrary. This guy is a major leaguer, right? There's a point at which we say, okay, Brian Johnson is now a graduated major league pitcher. Even though we knew he wasn't getting optioned back down, we knew he wasn't getting sent back down to the minors. We knew he was up, but we waited for him to pass some kind of threshold before graduating him.
Well, and I'm fine with that.
And that's fine, but I'm just saying. So I'm starting from the top. But at some point, so do you think we should go back to having an age limit? Do you think that, like, in addition, because basically there's really no age limit that we enforce. We if you go to our About page on the website, we have our prospect eligibility disclosure there, I guess if you want to call it that. And what we use is rookie status, which is once a player has more than 130 at-bats in the majors, has pitched more than 50 innings, and one that we fudge a little bit, has been on an active major league roster for more than 45 days, not including September call-ups. We use our discretion with those because sometimes a guy has been on Marco Hernandez for a while, for example, I think technically was a rookie because he was on the major league, but maybe that's a bad example. But guys will have enough major league service time. Like I think Zue Lin, for example, is an example. I think technically he's exhausted his rookie eligibility because he's been on a major league roster for more than 45 days, but he still hasn't gotten 130 at bats because when he's up, he sits the bench a lot. So we use an arbitrary kind of, case by case basis there. Do you think we should, we in the past used to use 26 years old as a cutoff. Do you think we should go back to using age as a cutoff? And why do you think that's important? If that's what you think we should use, or do you think it's something else we should use?
I don't think we should use age. I just think that if it is a player that isn't developed by the Red Sox, so if it's a minor league free agent who is not an international guy, so if it's like a minor league free agent coming from another affiliated team, if they're over the age of 27 or 20, I would say probably 27, I don't think they should be ranked. Because those guys, you see it every year, they go out and sign, 5, 6, 7, 8 of those guys. They come in. Some of them are decent, have good years in AAA. Some of them don't. They usually move on after a year. 1 or 2 of them will get called up on an emergency basis. But that's not a prospect to me. That person wasn't developed by the Red Sox. They were doing stuff with other teams. And they came and they were signed to be a minor league filler. They weren't signed, to be anything. And they, some of them do turn out. And when that's great. But in terms of what we do, I just don't think that's something that's within our purview.
Do you think that we should be ranking William Cuevas?
Yes, because he was with the Red Sox originally. If it's a player that's come up.
So the fact that he spent 1 year in the Detroit system doesn't matter to you?
No, it's.
So what's the difference?
The difference is he was developed by the Red Sox. And I also don't think William Cuevas should be ranked, frankly, anyway. I don't think I have him ranked.
But I'm saying, if he were rankable.
But yeah, I don't think, he's someone that we've seen their entire development.
You ranked him 62nd in the system, by the way.
Which is not ranked in our top 60.
Well, but, I mean.
Which is not ranked in our top 60.
It's just barely outside.
I'm a math guy. But, but he was with, he's someone we've seen him since the beginning. We've seen his entire development. Yes, he went away for a year, but he came back, and that's that's someone we know. Ryan Brazier is someone he's 30 years old. He's obviously, it's a great story. The fact that he's pitched in Japan, he's pitched all over for a bunch of different affiliates, LA, Oakland, actually really just 2. That's surprising.
Yeah.
But he's pitched, for the Angels, for Oakland. He's got a cup of coffee in the big leagues in 2013. A guy who got a cup of coffee in the big leagues in 2013 and just now signed in 2018. Come on. There's no reason for us to rank him. And
I guess the thing that I'm working us towards is, what do you think the goal of a prospect ranking on SoxProspects.com, I guess specifically, should be? What information are we trying to convey to our readers? And kind of what I'm getting at here is I want us to kind of put this out there, and I'm really interested to hear what our listeners think and what they want to read.
I think it's okay. Sorry.
So, but no, that's fine. I'm about to throw it to you, but it's just kind of getting back to the question is, what do you think the goal of conveying a ranking of 60 players is?
To identify the top prospects in the system, talent-wise, be it for future with the Red Sox or for trade prospects. And I think that's the thing. A guy like Ryan Brazier doesn't have trade value. They're not going to go. He's not someone who, in a trade at the deadline, you're going to trade Ryan Brazier. Like
but,
that's I mean, and he's going to be up with the Red Sox up and down this year, and maybe they re-sign him next year, or more likely he moves on to another team next year. Like, I just don't.
Well, if he's on the 40-man roster, they can decide to keep him. Like,
yeah, but I would not be. I mean, okay, you're right. Yeah, I guess he's got all his options and everything. But
well, even if he options or not, he may not have his options. Actually, I need to check that. But Ryan Brazier. God, you got me saying Brazier. He's got 2 left. He was optioned in 2013. But I mean, to me, it's
I don't think that's like I would much rather use the time that like we're discussing a guy like Ryan Brazier to talk about like Brandon Howlett's GCL stats. And I think that's what people care about. That's a prospect. Like a 30-year-old is not.
Well, but here's the thing is Brazier's got value to the Red Sox. Maybe they didn't trade him, but in theory they didn't trade for someone because they have him. I mean, right? He's a player who can come up and provide value to the major league club.
Well, that's fine though. Then they can go. You can watch him on Nesson. Like, I don't care. He's 30. Like,
he's a man. He's 40.
Yeah, it's like he's a 30-year-old. Like, I mean, I don't want to pick on the guy, but like in terms of what we do, he's just not. Like, I don't think he's relevant in the Sox prospect sphere. Like, I see like I saw Fernando Rodriguez yesterday, who's the same age as him, right? Or no, he's actually 34. Like, you see those guys in AAA all the time, and just because they put up good stats and get a cup of coffee doesn't mean they should be discussed in rankings.
But if you think that they are better than that, like if you like, I'm not saying randomly throw Fernando Rodriguez Jr. into the rankings. What I'm saying is if you think Ryan Brazier is good enough that he should be ranked 32nd or wherever we have him right now in the rankings in terms of talent, right? If you're just ranking players in the minors,
I don't know how. I've never seen him, so I don't like.
You can see him on Nesson. You just said that.
Exactly. I've never seen him in person though, which is how I like to evaluate guys.
Have you seen Esteban Quiroz in person?
Yes.
Okay. How many times?
1 game plus spring training.
Okay.
And I've talked to scouts about him.
So could you have talked to scouts about Ryan Brazier?
Yeah, but no one ever talks about Ryan Brazier because he's 30 years old.
They could.
Esteban Quiroz is different because he's an international guy who's never played in America.
But what's the difference? Why is Brazier different?
Well, Esteban Quiroz is 26, first off. That's a huge difference.
Okay.
But second of all, he's never played in the States. He's an unknown quantity. Ryan Brazier is a known quantity. Or Brazier, sorry. I'm going to get that wrong the entire time.
You are. It's fine.
He's someone who has been around. He's jumped around. He was pitched in Japan. Like, just because he came back, I don't think.
I mean, to me, the thing is like, so Dalia Hinojosa. Okay.
International guy. I don't consider guys.
You don't think they should have ranked? Oh, you do think they should have ranked here. So what's the difference between getting your experience from ages 20 to 26 or whatever in the Angels and the athletic system or in Cuba? Like, what is the difference?
Just a sec. I don't think did we ever rank Hinojosa? I don't remember.
We absolutely did.
Where's
he ranked as high as 26. We ranked him as high as 26th in the system.
He signed as 28.
He signed for his age 28.
I have a distinct thing in terms of, and he's someone who for me, it would have been, he'd never pitched for anywhere but the Red Sox. So he came into the Red Sox, an unknown quantity.
I guess I'm asking whether or not you've pitched for the Red Sox. I mean, he hasn't pitched for the Red Sox. You're saying we should rank him. I mean, neither has Esteban Quiroz.
No, it's in terms of, they've never played stateside. That's my I just don't think that guys who have jumped around to a bunch of organizations and then finally stick and are like in over the age of 27, 28, whatever. I just don't think in terms of what we're trying to accomplish here they're not relevant. I just don't think.
If Ryan Brazier had come straight from the Los Angeles Angels organization, you think that's different or no?
What, when he was 25 years old?
No, let's say now. Let's say he had just stuck around. He's like let's say, he's their version of, I don't know, Cuevas without the 1 year in Detroit, right? Like,
what do you mean? So if he just came from the Angels to the Red Sox?
Yeah. Would you rank him?
No. I just don't think a 30-year-old should be ranked in his, from a guy who was a minor league free agent.
And to be clear, you're saying this not because you don't think he's good enough to be ranked in the top 60. You're just saying take him off the board.
Yes. I just don't think it's fair comparing minor league free agents who are over the age of like 28 to guys, to true prospects, to 16-year-olds like Eduardo Lopez, or trying to rank them, I think, is a fool's errand because they are what they are. But how 99% of them are what they are. They're going to come in for a year, like Ryan Court, come in for a year or two, hit decently, and then go sign with another team. And just because they have a good year or like, they get a cup of coffee doesn't mean I just don't think in terms of what we're trying to accomplish, I just don't see the value in ranking guys like that. Whereas Esteban Quiroz is a 26-year-old international player who's never played in America. So no one knows anything about him in that sense. Like, and he's an international signing. He comes in, he hits well. There's some upside there. Guys like, and then you compare.
But how is that easier to compare him to Anthony Flores than comparing Brazier?
Because he's an unknown quantity. He's never pitched. He's not like a minor league free agent. Like, I just don't. I guess maybe I'm biased against minor league free agents in the sense that I just don't think for what we're doing they should be ranked. That's my argument.
Well, you're a free agentist, obviously.
I just don't care. Like, they sign like 25 minor league free agents every year, and most of them like are they can have great careers. They're solid organizational players, but that's fine. That's a very good career. That's very successful. That's better than 99.9999% of baseball players in the world. But in terms of what we're doing, I just don't think they're relevant. I would rather devote the time and the discussion to guys who are actual prospects, who are guys that are coming through the system and actually, have
who just as little about.
I mean, I would disagree with that. I would say that if you look in the system right now, we've seen almost, except for the international guys, we've probably put eyes on 90% of the system.
Right, but I'm saying a guy like Brandon Howlett. Okay, we know he's drafted this year. We know that he was committed to Florida State. We know he's hitting well.
Prospect. That's a prospect.
I understand that. I'm not saying we shouldn't rank it, but I'm saying as far as devoting time, like we don't know anything about him because we haven't put eyes on him yet.
Yeah.
Whereas I can go watch Brazier on NESN. But
he's 30. I don't care. Like, he's not a prospect to me. I don't care. Frankly, what it comes down to is I just don't really care. Like, for a 30-year-old guy who they're going to go out next year and sign 4 more guys who throw in the mid 90s who are kind of like him. We'll see if one of them sticks. And I just don't think that for rankings purposes, in baseball terms, fine. Like, that is like, I'll evaluate in terms of baseball terms. I just have a problem with ranking them in our rankings. And I don't see what, like, I just don't. Why do we care about guys like that? Why should we care? Explain to me why anyone should care about where we rank Ryan Brazier. I would think people would much rather care about where we rank Eduardo Lopez, where we rank someone like Brandon Howlett, than where we rank Ryan Brazier.
Because for one thing, ranking a guy like Ryan Brazier moves one guy out of the top 60 prospects.
But he shouldn't be in like the top 30. And like, I just.
He's not. He's 32. But your point stands. But to me, it's if. And again, you're talking about taking a guy off the board based on a category, not saying that he's not good enough to be ranked in those players.
No, I don't. He could be good enough to rank in those players. Right. I just don't think minor league free agents from other organizations should be ranked.
And to answer your question, I think we should rank him if we think he is able to impact the major league roster more than, say, the guy we have ranked number 33. Right,
but I disagree with a bunch of guys behind. Like, you think,
in your individual rankings, you might have it different, and that's fine.
But also in terms of like a lot of the way I base rankings is also in terms of it's based on how I evaluate the players, and also I take into account what I consider trade value of a player. Would you, in a trade, if you're going to call the Red Sox, would you rather have Johan Martinez or Ryan Brazier?
Potentially Brazier, absolutely. If you don't think that Johan Martinez is going to throw strikes above Salem, which until about 3-4 weeks ago was a question.
Would you rather have Brandon Howlett or Ryan Brazier in a trade?
Potentially Brazier, if that's what my major league team that's trying to win a World Series this year needs.
No one's going out and trading for Ryan Brazier. You're going to sign him off the free agent wire.
I mean, you're going to sign him off the free agent wire, but there were teams competing for him.
I mean, that's fine. That's good. Like, let him go to the Red Sox. I don't care. I just don't think he should be ranked. Like, that's.
I understand that.
I just don't. I personally, and if like you guys, I mean, you and Mike have both say you disagree, so whatever. It's a moot point at this because nothing's going to change. But I'm not going to rank those guys going forward.
I think we said our piece. Everyone, podcast at SoxProspects.com. I'm curious to hear what people think about this. Just give us your thoughts. What do you think? 30-year-old minor league free agents, should they be ranked or shouldn't they, and why? Anyway, that's a good transition, I think, Ian. Let's get to some emails and get out of here. Sound good to you? We could be friends again?
Sure.
Please? I'll buy you a soda.
Let's go. Come on.
All right, fine. All right, our first email, again, podcast@soxprospects.com, comes from our longtime patron and almost kind of like an unofficial third member of the podcast at this point, Lendell Martin. And Lendell says, with the Red Sox being close to the $237 million mark, that would increase the tax penalties and move their first draft pick back 10 spaces. Do you think that could lead to fewer September call-ups this season in an attempt to stay under the line? I've seen different reports on whether or not they already went over, but I don't think they would get money back in the Kinsler deal unless it was to keep them under. Ian, you're saying that Evan Drellick has reported that they are over?
Yeah, I think it was last week. I mean, I can try and find the article, but he said they're already over. So I don't think it matters.
Yeah, well, I mean, would it matter? I mean, I just can't see them being so close to the line that September call-ups would matter, because keep in mind, September call-ups are getting a prorated, 1 month salary at the major league minimum, basically. So it's what was this, a 6-month season? So it's like 1/6 of $500K.
Well, here's the article from July 29th. Sources Red Sox to go over luxury tax threshold of $237 million. That was before the Kinsler acquisition. And it basically said the Red Sox, as presently constituted, will finish above baseball's highest luxury tax threshold in 2018. Sources with knowledge of the team's payroll told NBC Sports Boston. So if they're already over, it doesn't matter.
Interesting. Yeah. I mean, let's see. Red Sox payroll spreadsheet has them at 243. Yeah.
Yeah, they're already over. It doesn't matter.
They're already over. So it's over. It's done.
And that number, you have to remember that whatever the payroll is, that doesn't take into account the bonuses from playoffs and everything that aren't factored in, which all count towards the luxury tax, though.
Yeah, so they're over.
Yeah. So they're toasted in that regard. So they're going to be moving back 10 spots in the draft and giving up somewhere between we were talking about it before, like 450 to 550,000. And that's the impact that people should care about. No one should care if the Red Sox owners have to spend more money. I never understood the argument why teams care, why fans care how much the owner spends. It's not your money. Who cares?
Right.
But
because it raises ticket prices.
It doesn't, though. The
right.
ticket prices are not going to change if they are over the luxury tax or under. The only tangible impact that matters, especially in our world, is going to be that, they miss out on $500,000 in bonus money, which is basically the equivalent of signing someone like Nick Northcutt in the 11th round this year, which is, and Northcutt's off to a really good start with, I think, right? Still, maybe?
Yeah, and also your first round pick is 10 spots worse. You go from, if they win the World Series, they're going to go from picking 32nd with their first pick to picking 42nd with their first pick.
Yeah, and this year actually we should mention this too. It's going to be different. It's not 30 because there's 3 unsigned first round picks from last year, and all of those picks are made immediately after the slotted number of where they were, and so that means that 2 of them were the 8th pick and the 25th, which means there's going to be the 9th pick and then the 26th pick or 20. Yeah. So it's going to push back the Red Sox 2 spots, basically.
The last time the Red Sox didn't pick until 42 or later was 2007, when they had to give up the number 20 pick for signing, any guesses? Julio Lugo.
Oh, I was going to say oh God. Fun fact, I actually caught a foul ball from Julio Lugo at a Red Sox game once.
Nice. Good for you.
But yeah, so
their first pick that year was in the supplemental first round at number 55.
But I think
when they picked Nick Hagedorn,
that draft though illustrates the difference though, because back in 2007, you could take whoever you want and give them big money. So they took Will Middlebrooks in the 5th round, Anthony Rizzo in the 6th round. They got Ryan Presley in the 11th round. They took but didn't sign Justin Grimm in the 13th round. They got Hunter Strickland in the 18th round. They took Yasmani Grandal in the 27th round.
Drake Britton at 23. Don't forget that.
Yeah,
Nick They didn't sign Grandal and Tepesh, but
correct. But they're both big leaguers. That was when you could just load up on high school guys. You can't do that anymore. So $500K, that's a decent amount of bonus, especially when you're picking at the end of the first round. So your bonus is already going to be much lower, or your bonus pool is already going to be much lower. Mm-hmm. So their cap total is going to be something. It's going to be around $5 million and maybe a tick over. Mm-hmm. And you knock off $500K off that, you're looking at probably closer to 4.2, 4.5 at most million bonus total. It's going to change your entire draft strategy in that regards. You're probably going to have to go underslot with your first pick if you want to take anyone those picks. So it's going to be interesting what happens next year with that in that regards.
Yeah. Yeah. And this is a system that really could have used the infusion of talent, right?
We're seeing it with this year's draft. It's guys like Costas is in the top. You know, he was 2.5 million. What was the number we came up with? It's like 1.8 about is what their first pick's going to be now, or 1.7.
I'm sorry, what?
What is their first pick going to be like if it's assuming it's like 40 to 42? It's like 1.8 total for the slot number.
Oh, the slot. Draft slots. So based on this year's numbers, okay, so the latest their first pick could be is 42. That's 1.7.
Yeah.
If they're at like, say, 36, that was just under 2 million.
Yeah, so you're looking at like 1.7 to 2 million at most.
Whereas if they picked 32 would be 2.1, 20. I mean, they probably wouldn't pick later than like 30.
Well, the earliest they could pick, the latest they could pick is 32. The earliest they could pick, let's say they were bounced in the first round, it's like what, 28, 27? Because they'd have the best, they'd have the best lowest record pick of all those teams eliminated.
So that would be like 2.4, 2.5.
Which is still, I mean, so it's going to be a noticeable cap difference.
And it's 10 players that are gone.
Yeah, and 10 more players. So it's going to be interesting, especially considering their international signings too this year. It's been an interesting window in terms of they signed one big guy over $1 million, and other than that, they've only signed a few other guys around $500K, and they have a bunch of room left. So who knows what's going on there?
Right. All right. Well, thanks for the question, Lendl. Our next question comes from Patrick. Patrick asks, hello. Patrick asks, could you and Ian talk a bit about Denny Reyes and explain why his current write-up describes him as having fringe average command and control? And then he says a bunch of other, I'll read it. So I assume this is simply because neither of you have seen them since around 1 year ago, and you just have not had a chance to update his report based on first-hand evaluation. You might also talk a bit about how a lower-ranked prospect like Reyes might be valued more highly by Dombrowski than someone like Beeks, who due to his age has less of an unknown quantity. And I don't mean the second part of this as exclusive to Reyes, but more in a general sense of how rankings do not always correspond with the way a club might value prospects. Thanks for the question, Patrick. First of all, I read the whole thing to mention Reyes' report has recently been updated, as have a bunch of reports. If you go to soxprospects.com/scouting.htm, do you have to put the HTM now? I'm curious. No, you don't. Okay, soxprospects.com/scouting. So that's how this website works. We have updated a bunch of scouting reports since like the beginning of July. And Reyes' report was updated July 3rd, so I'm not quite sure. Try hitting refresh on your browser, Patrick. His report.
No. It says solid. It says the command thing.
Well, it says solid average control, fringe average command.
Yeah, and
which is different than what he put. His said fringe average command and control.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
So we've updated it.
I think.
But yeah, get to what you're going to get to.
The two things are that you have to separate command and control, which we did in that regards. And he doesn't walk anyone, so that's definitely control is there. Mm-hmm. But you have to remember that just because you can throw strikes in Greenville doesn't mean you're going to be able to throw strikes as you move up the ladder, or like command profile, same thing. And he's given up 11 home runs in 120 innings in Greenville. That's very bad.
Mm-hmm. Well, I was going to say, too, the other thing is that when you say throw strikes, it's not like he's going to lose his control. It's that they need to be better strikes or else they're going to get hit.
You need to throw quality strikes, and that's command. And red flag to me is 11 home runs in Greenville. Mm-hmm. 11 home runs in 120 innings against Greenville hitters. That means you're missing your spot. Mm-hmm. And you're giving up, and the higher you get, that's going to make hitters pay. And given his stuff profile, I just have questions long term about how that's going to play. And I'm not sure the command is going to be there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, he's an interesting guy. He's definitely moved up because he almost kind of has to. And
I think that that is a misconception, is that don't look at walks and talk about command. They're not the same thing. Like a walk rate gives you an idea of control, but it does not give you an idea, like insight into a guy's command profile.
Right. Exactly. I mean, his home runs per 9 isn't awful, but if you narrow it by like guys who've thrown 40 innings this year. Yeah, I mean, you're talking about relievers who are ahead of him. If you narrow it to guys who've thrown 60 innings, he's kind of middle-ish of the pack, I guess, Ian. I don't know. I don't know that that's horrible, is 11 home runs.
I think it's, in terms of Greenville, it is, given the level of competition. Like if you look at most of the other guys, the top two are Stankiewicz and Dedger, who are Pawtucket, Portland guys. Mm-hmm. You have Hildemar Requena,
who's had a brutal year,
who's just been terrible. Cuevas is Pawtucket again, and then Denny Reyes.
Yeah, like that's in total home runs, but he's also thrown a whole bunch of innings. I mean, yeah. Here, I'm curious now. Home runs per 9. This is riveting radio. Yeah, if you look at the top guys who are home runs per 9, it's like, okay, reliever. It's Trey Ball, Florentino, Adam Lau, Corey Pimentel, Fernando Rodriguez, Hildemar Requena. Did not mean to do that.
If you take out, though,
for home runs per 9, for guys who've thrown 50 innings, it's Requena, Jimenez, Stankiewicz, Cuevas. But then you've got, like, Jalen Beeks was over 1. Emmanuel DeJesus, Tanner Houck is basically two different pitchers, but
yeah, I don't read his numbers are weird.
Yeah. Anyway, I don't know that I think that the home run number it's not good, but it's I don't know that it's
I just have questions about the command still. So yeah.
Yeah. Fair enough. But yeah, and like I said, if you're, it might not be a bad idea, folks, to hit refresh when you're on a player's bio page. But thanks for the question, Patrick. Our next question comes from Alexander, and he says, "Hey fellas, I have a question about development of young pitching, particularly in the Red Sox system. Who do you think has the greatest effect on a pitcher's development in the Red Sox farm system? Is it the Salem pitching coach, Portland pitching coach Brian Bannister, or Pedro in spring training, etc.? I worked for Salem while I was going to school and saw Paul Abbott working with Kopech, Stank, Ball, and Ty, presumably Buttrey. It seems like our homegrown starters aren't successful in the majors. Erod seemed to develop mostly in the Orioles system. Owens and Ball failed to launch. Buchholz and Masterson seemed to have trouble with long-term progress. I wondered if we've had guys in significant positions not helping our draftees develop, or if we aren't scouting youth and drafting well. Thanks for all you do. Been following since the days of Moss, Murphy, and Anderson. Alex, thanks for the email. I guess for the one thing, I mean, this gets to something that we've been talking about a lot, Ian, which is just, the chicken egg debate of development versus scouting on the pitching, their inability to develop pitching. And I know, they're trying to change a lot of what they do, in part because they have access to more things like TrackMan data, and in part just trying to think about what they do, move guys to the bullpen earlier if they are in fact bullpen arms, do things like try and change Tanner Houck's entire arsenal, right? But in terms of who has the most significant effect, I mean, we talked about guys. Obviously, there's Bannister, the team's pitching coach. There's also Ralph Truhl, the roving pitching coordinator. I don't know. What are your thoughts?
I think it varies from pitcher to pitcher because you just don't know. Pitchers are it's strange in that regards that you don't know what's going to click. Mm-hmm. And I feel like it can just, it's like situational dependent on what level you're at. Maybe it's, you're struggling at one level and the pitching coach there helps you out, or during spring training you're struggling and the roving coordinator helps you out, which is Ralph Truhl. Mm-hmm. Or I think it just varies, and it's hard to nail down a specific person, identify them as the go-to in that regards, right? Because I wasn't a pitcher back in the day, but it seems like, just from having playing experience, that there's a lot of different voices talking to pitchers and trying to help them out, and you, as I said, just never know which one is going to click and what's the one that's going to make the difference.
Right.
So
it could be anyone. I mean, the one I always go back to is Jonathan Papelbon learning a split-fingered fastball from Kurt Schilling in spring training.
Yeah, exactly. It could even be other players. Yeah. You hear a lot about guys learning pitches from their teammates or whatever. So
I mean, maybe they learn it from Pitching Ninja on Twitter, right? I mean,
yeah. So it's hard to nail down a specific person. But that's I think also though why you see each level as a pitching coach. Then you have guys like Bannister, Dave Bush, who travel and see all the affiliates and are working with them. And then you have Ralph, who coordinates the whole pitching operation. And then you have more roving instructors. And during camp, as they said, Keith you see Folk. Pedro, Keith Folk, Louis Tiant, all those guys are in camp working with the guys. So
Folk is kind of like a roving relief pitcher instructor, actually.
Oh, is he really?
Yeah,
I didn't realize
he's employed by this. Yeah, he's been back with them for a couple of years now.
Gotcha.
As a roving relief pitcher instructor. I don't know that he's constantly on the road, but
yeah,
he does travel to the affiliates and work with the relievers. So it could. I mean, the number of voices can help. I mean, sometimes you can get too many cooks, but you never know what is going to click for a guy. And this is a thing that's really in a state of flux right now. You have things like Driveline, what's it called, pitch editing or pitch development. I never get the
I thought it was like Driveline Baseball Academy or something.
Well, right, but I'm saying the theories behind it. It's
there's just a lot of like weighted balls and stuff like that.
Pitch design. Thank you. Pitch design.
Yeah. And like slow shutter speed cameras and everything.
Yeah, slow speed cameras, rotation balls, pitch tunneling, things like that. I mean, really kind of this is Moneyball right now.
Well, there's more information now available than ever for pitchers. And, it depends what you're willing to take advantage of, as you said, like going up to Driveline, or, you've got the guys who go home and work with their pitching instructor that they've been working with since they've been, 10 years old or whatever.
Yeah. I mean, for those of you listening,
a bunch of guys.
Yeah. For those of you listening who are on Twitter, follow, I think it's Pitching Ninja. Is that what it is, Ian?
He had a Blake Trinan GIF, whatever it is.
Mm-hmm. He has a lot of Blake Trinans.
His sinker yesterday was so filthy. It was like 98, looked like a changeup.
Yeah, it's twitter.com/pitching ninja or at pitching ninja on Twitter. It's Rob Friedman, and he's basically he's the guy that does GIFs or GIFs of, depending on whether or not you enjoy freedom, of pitchers. And sometimes it's just of one pitch. Sometimes he has this really neat thing where he'll overlay the fastball and the breaking balls. Like one of the top ones right now is one he did today of Jake DeGrom, a 97 mile per hour fastball and a 93 mile per hour slider overlay, slowed down. It's disgusting.
A slider at 93.
Yeah,
I've seen 8 people in the system throw more than 93 the entire year.
Yeah, and of course the batter is who's 5 in Atlanta? Encarnacion?
Camargo. Oh no, Freeman.
Is it Freeman? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's Freeman just looking silly on one of the two. I mean, he's taking one and he's swinging and missing it. Probably the slider. It's gross, but yeah, follow him. And it really, launch angle is kind of like the one that's made it to the mainstream, but pitch tunneling and pitch design is sort of the thing that's kind of next. That's
launch really angles because of it's guys like Joey Batista, JD Martinez. I don't know why I said Batista, Max Muncy, guys like that, or Daniel Murphy a couple years ago, changed the launch angle in their swing, and you're seeing the results.
Right. So, yeah, but thanks for the question, Alexander. We appreciate it. Our last question comes from a couple of questions from Bob. He has a couple of questions. First, he says, I've never seen him, but I don't get why CJ Chatham is at number 8 based on your write-up. He seems like a limited utility player at best, and he's 23 in Salem. Why not move up younger players with more upside, maybe Alex Scherf? Ian, you want to take that one?
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty simple with Chatham. He can play shortstop, and shortstop in the major league level is the bar is very low. And so if you can play shortstop and you have a chance to hit a little bit, even if there's no power, that is a top 10 prospect, especially in a system like the Red Sox that isn't good.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I think we also just have this habit of idealizing guys who don't have a lot of, there's a thing called prospect fatigue, right? Where once a guy's been around for a while, you're sick of him. And so you want kind of the hot new toy, right? So you think oh, Alex Scherf, he's got 47 professional innings to his name. Why isn't he ranked higher? It's well, those 47 innings weren't great. And we've seen him in the spring, and we have him ranked where you think he belongs, Well,
and I think a lot of it, too, is people get attacked. And I do this sometimes. They get tunnel vision and looking at ceiling. Mm-hmm. And when you're taking – ceiling is all well and good. But if your chances of reaching that are 1%, that's – I'd much rather have a guy like Chatham, who I'm pretty comfortable saying is a utility guy and maybe has a chance of being a fringy starter, second division starter type. Mm-hmm. Than a guy who has a 1% chance of being a major league starter.
Right. And it's kind of, look, if we were doing the rankings based only on upside, your top 3 would probably be some combination of Chavis, Casas, and Dahlbeck, right? And you wouldn't,
well, if you're going straight up,
probably Groom 1.
Yeah, no, it's Groom 1. If you're going straight upside, it's Groom, Dahlbeck, and Casas probably, or probably Danny Diaz or Flores or something. Just we haven't seen them, I have no idea. But
and you would be ignoring the chances of hitting that ceiling.
Yeah, it's just there's that's why when you look at I think actually this is a good point just to reinforce when you look at the scale, look at Alex Scherf. We project him as a 4 right now with a 2 floor and a 6 ceiling. So you see, and CJ Chatham we have as a 4.5 with a 3 floor and a 5 ceiling. You could argue the 3 floor is more 4, but like 2-6 versus 3-5, which is the difference between Alex Scherf. Like, there's a chance he never makes it out of A ball.
Mm-hmm.
CJ Chatham, I'm very confident in saying will be, an organizational.
He'll get to AAA.
He'll get to AAA, and he's an org player at worst.
Mm-hmm.
And best case, he doesn't have as high ceiling. I'll acknowledge that, but he's got a better chance of reaching his ceiling, and that's kind of like why when he's graded where he is, if that makes sense.
And the other reason, I mean, this is a phenomenon you're seeing with the guys who are getting traded. Jalen Beeks, 6 in this system, 16 in Tampa's system.
Yeah. It's
Ty Buttrey, 19 in this system. What was he, like 27?
Yeah, if you took CJ Chatham in another system, he's in like the back end of the top 10. Or sorry,
15.
He's in like the 15 to 20 range.
Yeah.
Whereas like in the Red Sox system, so that's why, like, in terms of if you're going to like the top systems in baseball, the Red Sox maybe would have like one guy in their top 10s, maybe two.
Right.
Like their system is just not very deep.
Not the White Sox, who are the top ones right now, like Atlanta.
San Diego.
San Diego. San Diego.
Let me go to the Padres. I'm going to go to Pipeline because this is actually a good like comparison point that I think kind of doesn't get
Padres system is
enough.
silly.
It's not all top 10s are created equal is a good way to say it. Right. And like if you go to the Padres, their number 10 prospect right now, their number 8 prospect is, or actually this is really funny. Their number 8 prospect is Logan Allen, old friend. Their number 11 prospect right now is Anderson Espinosa.
Right.
Their number 11 prospect is Espinosa. If Anderson Espinosa was in the Red Sox system, even coming back from Tommy John, he's the number 1 prospect probably.
Right. Cal Quantrill at 10.
Yeah, like this system, like Buddy Reed would be a top 5 prospect in the Red Sox system.
He's 13 in there. Josh Naylor at 15 probably.
Oh, or Nayless, the outfielder, would be a top 5 prospect in the Red Sox system. Like, yeah, the San Diego system is disgusting.
Right.
But I think it's just they're
no, like, it's an extreme example. We should mention
it is the extremist example probably. But like even in an average system, the Red Sox, like the number 8 prospect in the Red Sox system is not reflective of like a number 8 prospect around the game. If you look at individual systems in like 70% of the systems.
Mm-hmm. Right. And Bob's other question: we seem to be in a cycle where corner infielders are top prospects. A few years back, 2014 and 15, it seemed to be middle infielders / outfielders. Do you think it's just the Red Sox system? Is it MILB wide, or is it a change in drafting strategy, or have I got it wrong? I don't know that I agree with that. I mean, if you look at the Red Sox system, the number 1 and I guess you've got 1, 5, and 6 are corner infielders in the Red Sox system right now, and I guess 10 as well with Akame. I think that's just 13. Luck. Is it really?
No.
Who's 13?
Yeah. 13 is
Northcutt.
And 16 is Diaz, who's a corner guy, and 19 is Travis, who's a corner guy. There's a lot of corner guys.
That's true.
No, I think there's some relevance to what he's talking about, and I don't necessarily think it's like a philosophy change. I think it's just kind of like people or around baseball, up the middle guys are valued more, and given where the Red Sox are usually picking, they're not getting those guys. Mm-hmm. Like if you're an up the middle talent who's a high end prospect, you're going in the top 15 or top 10 of the draft. And given where they've been picking with their slot, constraints and everything, they just haven't had a chance to go out and get those, those high end, middle of the diamond types. I mean, they've gone after some center fielders, but in terms of infielders, they've kind of they've done what they had to. And this year, like you look, Casas fell to them at, the end of the first round because he's a corner guy. If Casas was a shortstop, he goes in the top 10 probably.
Right.
And the same thing, guys like Nick Northcutt. If Nick Northcutt play up the middle, he's going in the top 3 rounds. Mm-hmm. So where they're picking, I think it's more they just don't have a choice. Like that's kind of
right. You can take that all. I mean, that's the thing that we wind up hearing. It's like, do you want Devin Marrero or do you want Tristan Casas? Right.
Yeah.
I mean, you're not getting the combination of the two.
Upside if you take a corner guy.
Right.
And you look even internationally though. You look last year they signed their big top bonuses. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 of them were signed as shortstops. But the problem is with Latin guys, more than half of those guys aren't shortstops.
No.
Like everyone plays shortstop in the Dominican if you're good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Diaz immediately moved to third. Flores stayed at short. Abreu moved to
230. So
right. Well, that's the thing. They're 16.
Yeah.
Nelson Abreu moved to center field. Denny Daza stayed at short, but he's not hitting. Wilker Vargas is barely playing for whatever reason, and Luis Mota I think is also barely playing.
Yeah, he has 66 at bats.
Yeah, he hasn't played very much, I don't think. Yeah, he's played
Yeah.
how many games? I don't think he's definitely not starting. I know that much. Yeah, 23 games on the year. Yeah, hitting 182.
Yeah, so it's like it's harder to find the up the middle guys. And the Red Sox, that little stretch they had where they had Moncada, Bogarts, Betts, Dubon, like all those guys. That's just that was some really good scouting and development, but a lot of those guys came in under the old systems, and they just can't do that anymore.
Right, and I think I think that's part of it. That's true, but I do think there's a certain amount of it that's just kind of.
I think it's low. I mean, it's just the way it's like. Yeah, it's a snapshot in time, and this is where the system's at now.
Yeah, I mean it's. Yeah, they developed Devers, but they also like you said, they developed Bogarts too.
Yeah.
For all we know, Flores and. Who else? Duran, although I guess he's going to be in the outfield now.
Outfield. They don't have a lot of shortstops. I mean, it's literally
really
Flores and Nets are the only shortstop second basemen we have in the top 35.
C.J. Chatham disagrees.
Oh, and Chatham, of course. Duh.
And I guess De La Guerra has fallen out. He's kind of just outside, as have Ever Luis Lozada.
But like Suarez moved to center field. Yeah, it's harder to find those guys. I mean, that's what it is.
Right.
So,
right.
yeah.
But yeah, anyway, all right. So thanks for the question, everybody. Again, it's podcast@soxprospects.com. We appreciate the listen. We're going to wrap things up. Working on a little something for the podcast that'll make it a little bit more of a fun listen. So hopefully, I think we're going to have that maybe by our next episode. We're not going to be here next weekend, I think, right, Ian? Is that what we discussed?
Yeah, I think you're away, aren't you?
I'm just tied up all next weekend, but the weekend after, hopefully we'll be back. I think I'm around.
We're going to try and record, 2 or 3 a month?
Yeah,
two usually.
3 or 4 a month, I would say. 2 a month would be every other week.
Yeah, isn't that what you wanted?
Oh, okay. Well, at any rate.
No, I would say
no
3
more than a couple weeks
off.
off. Let's put it that way. No more than a couple weeks off.
Yeah, we're going to try to be more consistent now.
We are.
We should be able to. And we have been the last couple of weeks.
We have.
Like if you look since June, we've been good. This summer we've been good.
Mm-hmm. We have. All right. Well, thank you everybody for listening. On behalf of Ian, who you can follow on Twitter @Ian Cundall, IANCUNDALL. You can follow me @Chris Hatfield, SPChrisHatfield. Big thanks to Podcast Joe 2.0, Joe Tetrault, our producer. And thanks to all of you for listening, and to all of our patrons. Again, down the home stretch, 1 week left in the Sox Prospects donation drive. Please, we're very, very close. Help us get over the hump. Help us balance our finances for the coming year, so we can keep giving you the best coverage of the Sox farm system anywhere on the web, or the Reb. Easy for me to say. Thank you, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your weeks.